Channel 711 on 20, and the folks always logged on to Classic 105 and Hot 98. Good Wednesday morning to each and every one of you. This morning, ahead of Grenada's reopening of its borders. Good morning, Minister David. It's been a while.
Yes, it's been a while, and it's unfortunately I'm not sitting right across the desk from you, which is always a better place to be. But
you go. Don't worry. Soon time, COVID will be a thing of the past, and we can go back to normal. We try our very best to do so. All right, let's get right into it. First off, I wanted to hear from a member of government, and as you're the guest this morning, it was announced yesterday or revealed yesterday that the official date for
that we're working towards to reopen. As you're well aware, things go all kinds of crossways. It's always a challenge. You know, you want to open up, people want to come back, the economy needs to open, people want to leave, people want to travel, but it's I think the primary thing in our minds and in the minds of all Grenadians is how do we keep the virus out while at the same time getting our economy going, getting jobs back, getting things back to as close to normal as we can possibly do. So yes, that is what we are working towards.
Can you share with us some of the things that have already been decided that needs to take place once the borders reopen and flights start?
Going on, not only with Grenada, actually the Prime Minister and the other heads of government in the region have been discussing it at regional level. And as such, we are all learning as we go along. But certainly the primary thing is how do you bring people into your shores without at the same time causing the spread of the virus in Grenada. So firstly is to make sure the persons who come in, the visitors, the returning nationals, anybody who comes in when the airport is reopened, comes in virus-free. That's the first step. So can you ensure that 100% of the people who board that plane do not have the virus? Now, it is always difficult to talk in 100%. The next question is, if somebody gets to the plane and ensure that they do not have it. So that's the second phase, when they land at the border. That things have been put in place for that also. So the actual opening up on the 1st of July. Between now and then, they are testing before they come. When they arrive, they test again to ensure that, again, to reassure ourselves that persons do not come in with it. And then we send them into to quarantine, and there's some discussions we can have on how long they're going to quarantine. Then we send them into an area where they're isolated. So steps are being taken. With the opening up after July 1st, it is nearly impossible to ensure that they test before they come. They have to test before they leave their point of departure. So when they get here, we have to test them. If they test positive, of course, they go into 14-day quarantine. If they test negative, we are going to place them in some limited isolation.
National visitors that most likely will be coming in, I'm guessing, as soon as the borders open. Let's deal with our Grenadians in the diaspora and protocol in place for the arrival of our Grenadian nationals coming into the island from Friday.
But first of all, let me say this. That got to the US, got to Canada, got to the United Kingdom, and then Grenada shut down. They were unable to come back. I've heard some stories of real desperation and grief. So remember, these are Grenadians who are stranded, and they want to come home. They want to come home in the diaspora. So they want to come back. So the persons who are coming back now are stranded nationals. And we can assure you that we have done all the checks to make sure these people are stranded. How do we do that? We look to see whether or not they have return flights, return tickets. We check persons to ensure that they have a home in Grenada, that they've been living here. So 100% of the people coming in on the flight on Friday are stranded nationals, stranded in North America. Now, our requirement for them, for anybody to get on the plane is one, that they must be tested 7 days, within 7 days of leaving, meaning from the PCR test, they are now eligible to come. But they also have to agree that upon arrival, they are able to take care of the quarantine requirements that we have set a few minutes. So those are the persons coming on Friday on that check-in flight. When they arrive in Grenada, they are going to be tested again upon arrival, and another PCR test. We know it's intrusive. We know it's something that persons do not like. But remember, our primary objective is to ensure that the virus does not come onto our shores. With all of the empathy for our Grenadian comrades in the diaspora, we also have to bear in mind that we do not want to cause spread, community spread. Thus far, we've been very successful. Thus far, the international community has praised Grenada. Grenadians have been praising Grenada. Grenadians in the diaspora have been praising Grenada. So we do not want to cause any spread. So when they arrive again at Maurice Bishop International, they are going to be tested. If they test positive, they go into the 14-day quarantine before they leave quarantine to ensure that they are no longer are testing positive. So that's if they test positive. If they test negative, and we are talking about the flight on Friday, if they test negative, then we put them into a quarantine for between 2 and 4 days. And in that period, before they leave the quarantine, they will be tested again. So in other words, they have a test in the United States, they have a test upon arrival, and a test upon departure from the quarantine. And all of these requirements are based on scientific guidelines. Remember, we've said time and time again, we are going to be following the science. In other words, us politicians are not going to make a decision simply based on some political, is the doctors, the scientists who make this determination. So they are going to be tested again before they leave the quarantine. If they test negative, they can leave between 2 to 4 days after the third test, 2 tests in Grenada. If they test positive, those are requirements to ensure we do not get the virus in Grenada. And of course, when we talk about quarantine, we're ensuring that the people stay in the quarantine. We also have the tracking devices. I think there's the tracking device, a mobile tracking device. If anybody violates the quarantine requirement, they are going to be held in a state quarantine facility that the persons who come in are negative, but if they turn out to be positive, we have a requirement to isolate them and keep them in quarantine until they are free of the virus.
Okay, so just to clarify, if you're tested negative, you will still be asked to self-quarantine at home for 2 to 4 days?
If you tested
negative?
If you tested negative for the 2 to 4 days, you are quarantined in a place where you are not circulating with people. If after those 2 to 4 days you test negative again, then you can go home where you will be kept for 14 days with limited circulation. You can go to your home, can go out for a run, you can go, if you have an emergency, a medical emergency, you can go, but you can go to your home where you will be quarantined 2 to 4 days.
Okay, and for those who would be placed in the government facilities, would the individual incur their own cost? And have you an idea what that cost may be? A general figure.
We have in the United States now, our embassies are ensuring that persons decide where they want to, which of the facilities they would like. Their facilities with hotels if they want. They can go to a hotel that's been used. Everybody knows that True Blue Bear has been used. Other hotels have been used. Other facilities have been used. There are middle facilities where they can go. The cost varies depending on the facility. They will be given the list of places where they can be quarantined for the 2 to 4 days, and they will choose where they want to quarantine. And yes, they will bear the cost of the quarantine. They will bear the cost of the testing. There will be no cost to the taxpayer in this period.
When it comes to the monitoring, you mentioned that you have the tracking devices and so on. What if there are individuals who do not want to fully cooperate with the rules and regulations in place? What's the repercussion for them? Would they be sent back where they don't want tracking device?
Well, the state has the ability to enforce its regulations. Remember, these regulations have the force of law. So if somebody leaves, we inform them before they leave. They agree by getting on the plane. They are agreeing to abide by the regulations. When they land, if somebody lands, for example, and refuses to test or refuses to go into quarantine, the state has the ability to enter state-backed enterprise with the regulations having the force of law, and the force of law will be used. There will be zero tolerance on this, because we are well aware that the primary objective is to keep our nation free of the virus. And we know for a fact that there are people who sometimes want to break quarantine, but we will be watching them. We will be ensuring that they stay inside. And of course, the Commissioner of Police is a part of the team that is coming up with all of these regulations. So he has his ability, the ability of the state to enforce what we have in our regulations.
When the borders reopen in July, what if there are Grenadians who want to come home for a short visit, whether it's a week, or the folks who would like a short business trip, maybe 2 days, and that is shorter than the 2 to 4 day quarantine that they're required to do? Are there special arrangements in place for that, or at your own? What happens there?
When we open up, these requirements will remain, except for testing at departure. The requirements of testing when you arrive and the cost of testing will remain. With respect to persons who are coming in as visit staff has been trained over the last couple of days, all of that is in place. But if somebody wants to come in for a short period, a period shorter than the quarantine period, once we can ensure that they come in and they get to their destination, they do the test, that the testing come up negative, and once the testing comes up negative, they can make limited, limited circulation in our country.
The visitors that come into the island, would they be restricted in their movements? And if so, what would the...
A lot of training over the last couple of months, sorry. They have trained the persons at the tourism sites, at the hotels, at the restaurants, every place that the visitor will visit. The staff have been trained to deal with this. So the staff are well aware of what the requirements are. Now, if the persons they come to the hotel, leave the hotel, and go to a site, a tourism site, they can certainly go, because the persons at the site also are trained to ensure that the protocols are kept. The taxi driver taking them there is also trained. So through the chain of contacts that they will have, contact tracing is done, that the training is done to ensure that the social protocols and the physical distancing is kept. So everything is being done to ensure that if anyone goes out of the hotel environment, that they are not able to spread the disease, either because they don't have it or the contacts they're having are quite limited.
With the Grenadians that would be repatriated on Friday, God willing, they would also be going through the 2 to 4 day or 14-day quarantine?
Yes.
Just wanted to clarify that.
Let me reiterate that. Grenadians coming on Friday, we are ensuring that they test before they come, they test when they arrive, and they go into quarantine for 2 to 4 days to test on departure from the quarantine. If they come up negative, they go to their homes where they have limits. After that, they can circulate. After ensuring that there are no symptoms, they are not symptomatic. So they are going through a very rigorous process, because you see, Blossom, we are also using this period to train ourselves, to get ourselves used to the process that is required, so that when we open up in July, we already have all the kinks ironed out, and we already have to keep our country safe.
And while the PCR test will be the determining factor in your length of quarantine, would your place of origin also play a role in how you are managed or supervised while in the Isle of Spice?
The region is having intense discussions on that. The Prime Minister and regional heads are talking about that. But certainly, there are high-risk places and low-risk places. If you're coming from New York City, it's different if you're coming from St. Vincent or Antigua or Barbados in terms of risk. So yes, that will be a consideration. Many of the things we are going to be doing are not yet fully ironed out, but certainly the consideration of this, of origin of the visitor or the Grenadian national is something that we have to look at, because they are high risk and low risk, and certainly how you treat high risk cases would be different to how you treat low risk cases.
All right. Let's take a very quick break and come back inside with the questions that have already started on the social media. This is To The Point. We're speaking with Minister of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Peter David. This is To The Point. We'll be right back.
See it first on GBN. All the stories, from politics to industrial unrest. tourism.
Light it up. Light it up.
Station 2 Grenada.
Entertainment. Sports and culture.
Great shot there of Hon.Peter from Grenada, the Commonwealth Games bronze medalist.
See more on GBN, your most credible source for information. Nightly at 7.
Hi, I'm Francis Urias Peters. To really know who I am, you must look at the plays that I've written over the past 30 years, because they reflect and my identity as a Caribbean man. Now, I'm a good listener, and K105 has always been a great source of education and entertainment. Now, while the station named document and to celebrate our history, our behavior, and our achievements, K105 is my choice. It's the national station.
That's not how you cross the pedestrian crossing.
Really? One day I just woke up and I saw pedestrian crosswalks on the road. No one really showed me how to use them properly.
Well, this is how it's done. You never cross before doing these things. They might save your life. First, when you get to the crosswalk, you stop. You look right. If there's a vehicle coming, you put your hand out, making eye contact with the driver, indicating that you want to cross. And only when the vehicle comes to a complete stop, you quickly cross to the other side.
Stop, look, hand out, eye contact. Wait for pedestrian to cross to the other side, then you happily continue on your journey. This message is brought to you by this group of insurance companies, the Traffic Advisory Body, and the Traffic Department.
Greetings everyone. I hope this message meets you and yours in the best of health as we join in encouraging all to act responsibly.
COVID-19 presents the most serious
and deadly challenge
any of us will experience in our lifetimes.
We must act now.
We need to keep the Caribbean safe.
We can all help to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Please stay at home.
So Caribbean people, please stay home.
Caribbean people, please stay at home.
Please stay home. It's that simple. This too shall pass. But for now, stay home.
Stay in your yard. Stay home, stay safe.
Welcome back to The Point. Our guest this morning, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs, Honorable Peter David. It is now time to open the phone lines, 435-2041. That's the number to call if you have questions, comments, queries, concerns for the Minister. You can also pose those questions on the WhatsApp. Please, only written messages on the WhatsApp. No voice or video comments, questions, concerns on the YouTube channel and the Facebook page. Let's go to our first caller. Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. David, I have a question to you, but I wanted to say you, but I would say I. Suppose I came from abroad and it prevented me from coming into Grenada. And bear in mind, I'm a Grenadian citizen. Now I come and maybe I have the virus. I have caught the virus. Maybe I have a house or two in Grenada. And you likely, when I say you, sorry, not you personally, you, yes, the government or the laws want to quarantine me, which they have a right to, possible. But as you are aware, and as you know, and everybody knows, that I think a charge is being made onto you or to levy onto you. Suppose I have the money or I don't have the money, and I don't wish to pay. Tell me, what can you do? Do you have a right to send me back for where I came And bear in mind, I'm a Grenadian. I do not know law. And I don't want to pay. Or I don't have the keep. I want my money for some other purpose. And I have a home. Could you quarantine me in my home? Or should you have the right to quarantine my home? Or would you take me free? Or do you wish to charge me? Or is there any law which states, because you're a legal-minded person, I'm not?
Thank you very much, caller. Mr. David?
I missed the full question, but I think he is asking, can he be quarantined in his home
if he's
because
positive?
He has an empty positive?
Right.
So, yes. The problem with the positive test is the risk that will be borne by Grenadians in general if the person who is quarantined at home does not abide by the quarantine restrictions. If you test negative and you quarantine at home, then the risk is not as if you're positive. If you're positive, and listen, there have been debates on this issue, because one of the problems we have is quarantine facilities, and the gentleman is absolutely correct. It's a savings to him. This positive is huge. Imagine if we have 15 Grenadians like that who have a home and test positive, we will have to send people to monitor 15 homes, and the cost will be in cost to the individual and even to the state. If the state was paying, I think the primary thing in our brain is the health risk. The health risk, because even if we save you some money, we can end up in the long run costing the Grenadian people a whole lot. If somebody who's positive goes to their residence and does not keep the quarantine because we are unable to monitor 15, 16, 20 different houses throughout the island, it will be a nightmare. And I'm not sure if anybody will feel safe in those circumstances and under all the restrictions that are mandated. So I empathize with the gentleman's position. I understand the savings to him and possibly to the state, but the health risk is what we will be concerned about.
So what if I'll be right with you, but what if I can't afford it? Would I be allowed to board can I board Friday's flight?
If you happen to slip through and come positive, you will end up being positive in those circumstances. But if somebody turns out to be positive, then they have to be quarantined. When you put them back on a flight, you putting them back on with 90 people on the plane, knowing that person is positive. And then you have an obligation to tell the people on the plane. The airline has an obligation and will be sued if they knowingly put somebody on a plane going back who is positive. So it's not legally advised, nor is it politically correct, nor is it human or humane that person is positive. No, the person will go into quarantine, and we will have to, if they can't afford it, we have to figure it out. But we cannot send them back to somebody else. It becomes our problem. It becomes our problem to deal with the positive test and have them isolated until they are no longer positive.
All right.
Yeah, sorry to see that we all have to follow the same line that Mr. Donald Trump talked about in the holidays. We must open up. People going to get crazy. We're going to commit suicide. Please, I don't open. It says the people that come in to do business are the one, and the other stay for 4 days. We had the spare. I think everyone should have a limit. You come in for 4 days, you should be able to stay in Grenada have a stay for 8 days. The people that come in and they have to quarantine for 14 days as a foreigners, they come for holidays, they're supposed to be showing something where they can afford a month. Because if you come, most foreigners at the college distance, they are not like Grenadians who get 3 months holiday and how much weeks holiday. Some of them is 1 week holiday, 2 weeks, and that's it. So there's some kind of other thing I have to put in place, because this disease is like we can't stay. We have to live with it, live in it. So we have to see how to go around, how we can go around with it. And I'm glad to see that every Grenadian is trained right now. They're trained for everything and this thing. And I know that for years, all the things that we forgot, the training that we forgotten from the elder, we have to pick it up, stand in line, respect. We used to respect nurses and doctors, respect elderly citizens. All these things we went through. And surprised to see on construction site now. Fellas didn't know, right? In your put your pants in your shirt, even on construction work. So now we're going back to where we was before.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you for that, sir.
Thank you, caller. Mr. David? Unmute your mic, Minister David. Sorry. is muted.
Yes, the call was a bit muted in the first part of the conversation. So if you can just, I heard him indicate, yes, we have to all be very careful. But if you can help me, it was
he was just inquiring about the people who only want to come for short trips and to be required to quarantine for 2 to 4 days in case they want to stay less time.
Well, listen, the persons who are coming in, they know what the requirements are before they leave. Again, our primary objective is not to satisfy the individual, but to satisfy the requirements for keeping the state free of corona. This is not going to go on forever. Hopefully a vaccine comes into play sometime early next year. So when the vaccine comes into play and we feel more comfortable, then we can lift more restrictions. We are doing this thing in a phased way. And remember, we are all learning as we implement. We learn, we pull back. When you asked me about July earlier and opening in July, I said yes, but remember, this virus is a strange demon. Things can happen. So we may have to adjust as we go along. Certainly, we are doing 2 to 4 days. We may, in December or in September, October, make some changes. But for now, persons who are coming know the restrictions. They make a decision based on those restrictions. We are not going to adjust the restrictions. These restrictions came up as a result of medical and scientific issues. So if they can stay longer, they stay longer. Until the viruses stop shedding, and until we are faced, because we cannot put them on a plane with 90 or 80 or 70 or 60 other Grenadians. We'll be reckless in doing that. So they will have to adjust whatever they said they were coming to do. It's no longer 4 days. It is until your virus. So we make adjustments.
A WhatsApp question asks, when visitors are leaving the island, leaving Grenada, do they have to be tested? Would Grenada incur the cost of testing visitors if they're leaving?
No, we won't test them when they're leaving because they came, they were isolated. If the country in which they're going wants them to be tested before they leave, then certainly we'll have to facilitate that. So, for example, but remember, if the United States imposes a restriction sometime in August, which says in order for anybody to enter, it must be tested at the point of departure, then we'll have to do it. But it's not a requirement on our side to test them when they leave. If we know, on the other hand, if we know, and the point I'm making, if you knowingly put somebody on a plane who is positive, you suffer all the legal liabilities you can take.
A Facebook question, how does the tracking app work?
Well, the tracking app, I'm not a technical guy, but the tracking app will ensure that the persons who are controlling the devices, both the tracking app and there's also a wristband, if you call it that is able to monitor and geofence and all of that. What it does is ensure that every place you go, the persons who are monitoring it would know. It also ensures that if you leave or attempt to leave, so it does attempt to leave the point where you're quarantined, we are alerted. So we are able to immediately go to the source and deal with the problem. So it does two things. One, it ensures that you stay in quarantine. But if you are allowed to circulate, it ensures where we know where you have been. So if it turns out that you become positive, we can do what you call contact tracing. So we know they went to GBN, and we know they met with Blossom when they were at GBN, so we'll pull in Blossom and do some testing. We know they went to the post office. So it does two things. It ensures that persons remain in quarantine because we can monitor the quarantine, but it also ensures that we track all the contacts they've made throughout their visit or throughout their presence in Grenada.
A WhatsApp question, would everyone coming into the island be tested, or would you be doing the tests randomly? And do we have enough testing kits to test all the people coming in?
Well, we have determined how many tests we need in order to test everybody coming in. Our plan in the foreseeable future is that everybody who lands in Grenada will be tested. If we do not have enough tests, we get them. If we can't get them, the person doesn't come. In other words, as I said, safety, medical safety is the most important feature. So we're not going to just do random. Random doesn't help us in that case. Random will certainly allow people in who may be positive. So no, everyone will be tested.
All right, let's go back to the phone line. Good morning.
Morning, Blossom, and morning to your guest. I'm going to be very quick. Most of the cases, all the cases, as a matter of fact, that we have had so far in Grenada is imported. You're opening up your borders now to the same places the cases came from. Now, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. And I find doing that, based on what I said, that is a height of dotishness. It's reckless and responsible of tests. Now, these tests is a rapid test, or however you call it. I hope that the test that you're using, because there's controversy obviously about that. Not the PCR, the more one with the most reliable one. So those tests is not 100% reliable, and I hope we're not using those tests from a certain country that went to the United Kingdom and they had to reject it, and I hope they then send it down here for us and we're using that. So we have to be very, very careful. And anybody coming, I find data quarantine, I don't know about app and all this kind of a technology, and let the people pay for the quarantine. We can't afford that. Finally, I want to talk about this sexual cases that are going on. I see Keith Mitchell, bodyguard, or however you call it, get convicted with some allegation. And I want to find out, what are you all doing about the sexual harassment of the workplace, of our workers? I'm telling you, it is epidemic. And it's hurting me, and it's sad, because I'm not working, I'm a retired person, that government has failed to put in laws to protect workers, and these workers who have to do all these sort of things to keep the job. And you are in charge of the labor force. I'm calling on the government to be considerate and see if they could pass laws to protect the workers of this country.
Thank you very much, caller. And let me just make a correction. It was an advisor to the Ministry of the Prime Minister, I believe, and he was not convicted. He was arrested and charged. Minister David.
Yeah, well, the caller, let me take the last one first and give it to that. I do not comment on cases that are before the court, so I have no comment to make on any case. So I think the caller is well aware that, and as an attorney, I know that more than anybody. A case that is current will not be commented on. Secondly, this government has done a lot. I mean, the Ministry of Social Development has done a lot with respect to sexual abuse at the workplace and continue to do a lot. But this morning we are talking mostly about COVID. You can invite me back to talk about my role as Labour Minister and how we protect workers at the workplace. So I'll let the caller, please rest assured that we are very concerned about it and doing as much as we can. With respect to locking down forever, I mean, the debate is this. We can decide. And we can decide here, Blossom, this morning, and every Ghanaian can say, listen, let us lock down the airport forever. Let us not allow anybody in. Nobody is leaving. Because if nobody is coming in, nobody is going out. If no planes are coming in, we all stay there. But we all know in the Caribbean, throughout the world, that it is impossible to lock down your country forever. So we have to open. We have to keep the economy going. And we have to ensure we do it in as safe a way as possible. Now, as I said earlier, there is you have to find a balance between opening, all opening, and ensuring safety. So what do? We have to ensure that persons who are coming in, as much as we can humanly do, and with God's blessing, try to ensure that they're all COVID-free. But if, God forbid, one comes in with COVID, that we are able immediately to test and find it. And if, God forbid, that one slips through, that we are able to keep them in their home and we do the tracking. So everything that is done, and believe you me, caller, we spend hours upon hours every day, not only Grenada. The Prime Minister is nearly every day talking to his regional colleagues. Look at Antigua, look at Barbados, look at these countries. They need to look at our farmers, need to get the markets going. They need to get the product sold to the hotels. People need to travel. There are people in medical conditions who need to travel. There are people abroad who need to come back home. I saw a story about a lady in the diaspora who is desperately pleading to the government to let her into this country because her husband is not well and she is the person who has to come take care of him. These pleas, when you hear them, you'll be nearly inhumane to say the least, if you do not consider all of that. So we decided, listen, we have to open, but let us open in a way that is so restricted that we do everything possible. And that is what all these requirements are about. And listen, next week we can make a change. Why? Because circumstances change. There's a new regulation. You see it happening at the WHO all the time. This week they say 3 feet distance. They say the mask is foolproof, and they say no. So it's it's a debate. So the caller could not be calling for full lockdown of the country forever. And hopefully a vaccine will become available sometime later in the year, early next year, that allows us to open it. In terms of the rapid test, if the caller was listening, she would have heard me say, not rapid tests. She heard me say that we are not using the rapid test. We are using the other test.
The PCR tests.
The PCR test, that is much more reliable. The rapid test can come up positive if you had the virus. The PCR test, the reliable test that we use, is the one that's going to be used in everybody. So call again, be reassured and be assured that PCR is what we are using, not the rapid test, which has its uses, but that's not what we are using.
All right, back to the phone line. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you all doing? I welcome these regulations, and I don't see why some people can't understand reasonable things. No, this is for health's sake and our safety. Health is better than wealth. Health is life. And these regulations are welcome anyway, Minister. I applaud you for it, and it is wise. So you all do not let down your honors. Don't let down your guard. Stick to these wisdom and continue to apply it. We supposed to, and Grenadians supposed to know, and all people supposed to know rules and regulations that is wise for their safety. They must seek to adhere to it. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. There's a WhatsApp question. There are a few WhatsApp questions about the town of St. George. I'll get to them just in a short while, so rest assured to the WhatsAppers. There was a question that I just saw about UE. On YouTube, when are UE students and others be allowed in, and what would be the protocols for our returning students? As well as there's a question about students from St. George's University who are scheduled to arrive in approximately August. What would be the protocol for returning students?
Well, everybody coming in will abide by the same protocols. There are no protocols for students and protocols for nurses and protocols for lawyers and protocols. All the protocols will be the same. With respect to returning students, of course, the Ministry of Education will discuss with them in terms of costing and all of that. We may have to make some adjustments there, but the Ministry of Education, because we've received calls from students in China who are going to come back. They are all going to be tested, and we are going to ensure that they are all free of COVID before they are allowed to circulate in Grenada. So there's nothing different there. With respect to, what was the other issue?
That was SGU and the UE students.
SGU, the discussions between SGU and Grenada are currently taking place, and I don't know what the final outcome will be, but certainly when SGU students are allowed to come back in, again, they too will be subject to the protocols. How we fine-tune it, given the different circumstances of different people, it's something that we are constantly working on, because as we open up, and that is why we're doing it in a phased way. We bring in the repatriated Grenadians now, that they have peculiarities that visitors don't have. When visitors come in, we deal with the peculiarities of the visitor. When the student at SGU come in, we'll deal with that. So as we proceed to open up gradually, we are going to ensure that everyone who comes into the country is rigorously tested to ensure that they're COVID-free. And if, God forbid, a case appears, as happened in other islands, Barbados and others, we are able to lock it down quickly, isolate the case, contact trace all of the people, and isolate them. In other words, the science, medicine, is what is going to be leading us. The economy is important, but more important than the economy is the health and well-being of the Grenadian people. So while I said earlier that we need to get the economy going, we will not do it at the expense of the health of the people.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the line. Mr. Davis, I'll start with you. Concerning this quarantine business, right? I'm going on fine point and a marine point at the same time. Quarantine dividing in two parts, I will say right now, because there was quarantine long time before this virus. When a yacht go in any part of the world, right? When they put a yellow flag up, that means they don't clear immigration yet, so they cannot come show they are illegal. So they could go when they want on show and they're going and clear immigration and Alex has to stay on board. When they clear and they get it right, then everything is fine. So this quarantine business here right now is end up in another part, right? So this quarantine is in two parts. I mean, a lot of people, they might not understand what it means quarantine. Quarantine was a long time before. Quarantine is that, you put up your yellow flag on your boat, on your yacht, or wheresoever, anywhere in the world, and that means if you come show and you ain't clear, you is illegal. So that means you could get charged, right? So then know this quarantine business, they know in people who they're clearing to come in the country, put a yellow flag on the house. So let me leave it there for now.
Thank you very much, caller. Mr. David?
No, the caller is referring to yachts and the history of quarantining, but we have a different process of doing it. I don't think we put up a yellow flag on houses.
There are a few questions about the town of St. George, to which you are the MP, the parliamentary representative. One of the questions asks, when will residents of Four Roads live in peace? When will you break the shack erected by the garbage used as a rum and cocaine shop? The residents need peace and safety. Any plans to address illegal activities at the Four Roads, the area known as Four Roads? That's the political.
I don't want to isolate any particular area. The police, and in fact, I have a meeting with the Commissioner of Police today, not to talk about Four Roads, but to talk about how do we deal with the markets, how do we deal with vendors, all of the issues related to vending in the town of St. George, including the shops. In fact, there's a view that we should use the opportunity of COVID to do some restructuring of the market and vendors in the town of St. George. And I guess that can include any issues raised by persons in the community. And certainly we'll be consulted if there's an issue with respect to the shopping for roads that can be considered in that discussion with the Commission. I certainly will take it on board.
There's a question as it relates to labor. Any plans to increase the minimum wage in Grenada? And where can we get an updated minimum wage document?
Document can be received at the Ministry of Labor on the third floor in the ministerial complex. And there's always discussions to increase minimum wage, and we are considering it in certain sectors. It's not done overall to every sector. Certainly, it's been, it was done, for example, for security guards some time ago. We're looking at it in the context of domestic workers. We've done that. So there is ongoing discussions, and the wages commission, the board has been set up in order to do that. But that we will speak to the public in my capacity as Minister of Labour in that regard going forward.
And our final, off-topic question. There are Grenadians working in what we call the Indian stores who have spoken out about being mistreated by their bosses. Have you, as Minister of Labour, received some of those complaints, and how is the ministry tackling that issue?
The Ministry of Labour, led by, in respect of this, led by the Labour Commissioner, has always been looking into issues of mistreatment. In fact, nearly once a week, I have to engage in discussions with some employers, trade unions on those issues. Anybody who has a particular issue related to that, please contact the Ministry of Labour, third floor in the ministerial complex. My dear friend Cyrus Griffith is the Labour Commissioner, and any complaints to the Ministry of Labour is brought to my attention, and we deal with it. Certainly, there are some areas where workers are mistreated, and we are looking into that, particularly in the context of COVID. One of the issues that we had was some employers trying to insist that persons take leave without consultation. Those are some issues we are dealing with. Workers not being paid without consultation with the unions. So some employers have used the opportunity of COVID to do things that are outside of the law, and Labour Commissioner and myself are looking at those things. But certainly, if anybody has any particular complaint of a specific nature, certainly they can bring it to the attention of the Labour Commissioner in the Ministry of Labour. But COVID, the impact of COVID on workers and workers' conditions, it's something that we've had discussions with. In fact, we have a committee set up with the labor unions, some labor unions, to go around to all of the workplaces in government workplaces, to ensure that before we open fully within the government, that the sanitization, the distancing, all of the protocols are being put in place. And I've met with unions in that respect, and we are going to get back. We have a meeting on Friday where we'll complete the process and that. So yes, the Ministry of Labour, I know that is not the main subject this morning, but the Ministry of Labour is certainly cognizant and aware of all of the issues with workers, and we are doing as much as we possibly can.
I said that was the last off topic, but one just reoccurred to me. Just yesterday or day before, I saw a petition online as it relates to the reopening of or refurbishing of the loan library that Grenada had. I know you spoke a few weeks ago when we spoke, you said that was one of the things you wanted to tackle as the MP for the town. What's the latest with coming back of the library? Give me good news.
On my part, we found some finance. It was not all of the finance necessary. We found some persons who want to help. It's going to cost us a couple of $1 million to put it back on track. But as I said when I spoke to you before, even if we don't put it back as a public library, because some people argue it's too small for a national library, that building is of historic value. And I've had several discussions with many of the heritage organizations, including the Willie Redden Foundation, to try and get it done. For me, it's a plea, but you come up against a person who say, well, the library or the hospital. So you always have, heritage versus healthcare, or so it's a debate on allocation of resources. But I'll let you know that my passion, personally, while I'm passionate about healthcare, maybe a little less passionate, but very passionate about our public library.
All right, and now that we get back on track, Minister, in your wrap-up, there are people who are concerned about the reopening of our borders. There's one question on WhatsApp that said, why not start regional flights before we expand internationally? How can you reassure us that this is the direction Grenada needs to take at this time, even with COVID still present, but protocols are in place? How can you reassure the people who are still iffy and sketchy about the reopening? Just unmute your mic. Sorry, unmute your mic. You're right, go ahead.
All sketchy, we are all concerned. In fact, even within my own family, persons are saying, Peter, are you sure? And, the question of regional flights, it's something we discussed. And, you say regional flights, but somebody flies JetBlue into Barbados and then they take Leah to Grenada. That's not a regional flight. It's originating in Barbados, that flight. But the persons are coming from the United States, they're coming from Britain. So we have to look at protocols for everyone coming in. In addition to that, it's a difficult balance. If all of the region opens up, and you look at Antigua's already opened up, Barbados is opened up, St. Vincent's opened up, all of these countries are opening up, then it will be foolhardy of us to believe that we can remain isolated from the rest of the world. So we have to face the reality that even if we just open up regionally, it's really an international open up. So what we are doing is collaborating with our regional partners to ensure that all of us have these protocols, so that Barbados is safe, and St. Vincent is safe, and Antigua is safe, and St. Lucia is safe. Because if all of them open up, and then we have Liat and other regional airlines flying through Grenada, it's not just passengers from Barbados and so we're getting passengers out of the United Kingdom and other hotspots. Now, a caller earlier indicated that we may have to have different arrangements depending on the high risk and low risk nature of persons coming in. All those things are being discussed. As I indicated, we are discussing every possibility, keeping in mind the balance between the economy and health. With health being the primary, the Prime Minister said before, and all of us at committee level have said, we are going to be led by the scientists. And everything we do, everything you hear us say, has been vetted by the scientists, bearing in mind the balance. Because if at the end of the day we shut off ourselves from the world, then our economy will crumble and then we'll no longer be able to survive. And then, we will not have healthcare, we will not have education. It's a debate in the schools. How long do you keep kids from receiving education? How many years can you sacrifice in order to ensure safety? So in our view, in consultation with the public, because you've heard some callers have said, let's do it. Some people have said, don't do it. I met people who said, listen, boy, let's open up the place. We're going to deal with COVID, we get rid of COVID. And other people said, shut it down. We have to find a balance. So this government committed to safety, committed to health, zero tolerance on persons who are threatening that, will find ways every step of the way, having consultations with the people, to open up to get people, for example, in this phase, we are bringing back the people who are stranded. If you listen to the pleas of our Grenadians in the diaspora, you will want to bring them home. Bring them home. That's the first phase. And then we start opening up for visitors slowly, until, God's willing, we have a vaccine sometime in December, and then we say, thank God, and we can reopen fully. So we recognize the concern, but we are working the balance. And I listen to everybody who says, shut it. I tell you, my own family say, what we done that. But some parts of my family say, yes, we have to do it. So, but thanks for the opportunity to air my views, and we will continue to debate. Other people have different views. It's a big debate. COVID is new. Next time we get a virus, 20, 30 years from now, the next generation will be able to deal with it, because some of us will write a book on how we handle this one.
That's a good point.
And history will judge us on how good we do. And so far, thank God, we've been doing well.
I agree with you on that part. Thank you so much, Minister David, for being our guest this morning. Continue to stay safe.
You too.
Right.
Thank you.
Have a good Wednesday. We want to thank Minister of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs, Honorable Peter David, for being our guest this morning as Grenada prepares to reopen its borders July 1st, 2020. And there's a repatriation flight from the U.S. taking place on Friday, God willing. So those of you who would like to come home, please take note of that and get in touch with the folks you need to. And that's the end of my time today. I thank each and every one of you for tuning in. There are some questions on the WhatsApp. I'll see how best I can answer them before Joseph gets into the studio for mid-morning buzz. He'll take you up to midday. Have yourselves a productive Wednesday. Be safe, stay healthy, protect yourselves, and I'll see you tomorrow, God willing. Bye, everybody.